The fierce fighting between Russia and Ukraine is escalating. Russia claims Ukraine has lost over 1,000 troops in a day. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky calls the situation in Kyiv extremely tough. The ongoing hours-long power outages are the worst yet of the war.
The war in Ukraine is entering a critical phase. Russia has been pummeling Ukraine's power grid with drones and missiles. These are the images from Odessa. Kyiv claims Moscow has attacked the port city with over 100 drones. Russia has launched a barrage of drone strikes on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. Power supply in 5 key regions remains cut off amid bitter cold and high demand for heating. In Ukraine, millions have plunged into darkness as temperatures have dipped as low as -20 degrees Celsius.
We currently have no water supply, no heating and no electricity. So unfortunately, we have none of the basic amenities of civilization. But we hope everything will be restored.
Around 58,000 Ukrainian workers are racing to restore power across the country, with additional crews deployed in Kyiv.
For Kyiv, where the situation is very difficult, an additional 50 teams from all over the country have been involved. There are still houses without heating, and for them, the necessary equipment and teams are actually being sent to each house manually. It is also difficult in the Kyiv region, especially in the northern part of the region, also in the Boryspil district.
Fierce fighting continues near the front lines. Russian forces are currently some 30 kilometers from Slavyansk, a major industrial city in Donetsk. The strategic location of Slavyansk and heavy fighting makes it a focal point for the conflict. It gained international prominence as the first key battleground in the 2014 war in Donbass, where its seizure by Russian-backed separatists and subsequent liberation by Ukraine marked the war's beginning. Russia claims Ukrainian forces have lost around 1,200 troops over the weekend. Russian units are pushing forward across multiple fronts. It is difficult to independently ascertain the casualties in the fog of war. On the diplomatic front, Zelensky says Ukraine's delegation has held several rounds of talks with representatives of US President Donald Trump, with work underway on documents needed to end the war. This comes at a time Russia says Ukraine is running out of time and options to seal the peace deal. Trump is expected to attend the World Economic Forum in Davos. The US president has indicated that he might meet Zelensky, a meeting the Ukrainian leader has publicly sought. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And joining us live from London is Mr. Maximilian Hess. He is a Central Asia Fellow at Foreign Policy Research Institute and author of The Economic War, Ukraine and the Global Conflict Between Russia and the West. Mr. Hess, thank you very much for your time and welcome to the broadcast. What do you think will happen if Zelensky and Trump meet in Davos? Because this will be their 7th meeting.
Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me. I do, however, think that major progress is unlikely. Firstly, the negotiations over what kind of support the West would offer Ukraine have begun to make some progress, including the United States stating in the last few weeks that it would be willing to support a deployment of some Western troops to Ukraine to ensure that the ceasefire is monitored if and when a ceasefire is agreed. But all of this requires negotiations still to be had with the Kremlin, and the Kremlin shows no signs of reducing its demands from Putin's maximalist position for full annexation of Ukraine's 4 partially occupied regions, as well as international recognition of Crimea. Now, the Trump administration has brought real pressure on Russia with some of its sanctions steps in the last few months. But as we've seen recently with headlines over Greenland, there are real tensions amongst the Western alliance. And for Putin, dividing the Western alliance and weakening the West's unity and cohesion is just as important to war aim as seizing Slavyansk and other territories in eastern Ukraine. So for him, he is happy to play for time.
Mr. Hess, there are so many people who are saying that the issue of Greenland has overtaken the war in Russia and Ukraine. Do you think that will have repercussions in the coming future?
Well, I think it's not so black and white. Remember, one of the threats that Donald Trump cites when he talks about his need for the U.S. to increase its military presence in Greenland is the Russian threat. And for the Russians, the Arctic is hugely important because it is part of the reason that they get so much buy-in and support from China, when China realistically could get a lot of the same commodities that it gets from Russia, from Central Asia, and other countries that are only too happy to sell to it. So it's not as if Donald Trump taking a harder line on Greenland immediately means that he's going to be softer on Moscow, but it does mean that there are real tensions within the NATO alliance and that Trump's demands have thrown questions over what that alliance's future will look like. And that is, of course, hugely important to the future not only of Ukraine's defense and potential NATO membership, but to the future of European security.
Mr. Hess, it's good to see you. We'll have to end it there. Thank you for talking to us today.
Thank you for having me.